Yes, indeed. Really happy to be joined again by Philip Dwyer this morning. A little change in programming, but my friend, my colleague from over in Ireland, Philip Dwyer, is on the mic here this morning. And you know what? I'm glad to speak to you this morning because very relevant what you've been covering and what's happening on the ground in Ireland, stories that people need to hear. Philip, citizen journalist, Irishman, part of the Ireland First Party, documenting what's going on in a place called Coolock in Ireland. Philip, welcome back to the show. It's nice to see you again.
Thanks, Ricky. Thanks for having me. Yeah, it's been a kind of a crazy few days since I spoke to you last, never stops.
Well, it doesn't ever stop. And I always say there's a lot of water goes under the bridge. And in your case, an awful lot of water has gone under the bridge. One of the first times we spoke, you'd been beaten for covering the rats in Dublin and Parnell Street back in, I think, November last year. You got your legs smashed up real bad. And then ironically, or maybe not ironically, you were collared again this week in Coolock, marched off to be detained by An Garda Síochána, the Guardians of Ireland, being told in no uncertain terms, you're no journalist, you're a prisoner. And it happened to be, I believe, the same bloke that bashed you up last November. What are the chances of that?
Correct. And, on top of all of that, I mean, these guys didn't carry any identification with them, any badges, any even Garda markings with them. But yeah, it was absolutely no coincidence that this guy, he's also, I believe, not confirmed, that he's also part of the diversity police in An Garda Síochána, which are the people who go around checking online content for people saying mean words, people who are anti-immigration, people who are anti-LGBT, that kind of nonsense. So he's one of them. He's like a volunteer for the wokeness and for the woke government. And absolutely, I suppose everybody who's watched the footage there, I was on a live stream. He just walked up to me. Total political policing at its best. And, not giving him, he asked me to leave the area. He didn't even give me a chance to leave the area. He grabbed my arm as I was trying to walk away because since the Dublin riots, I'm probably extra cautious now, try not to get in the way of the Gardaí or give them a reason to go after you. But this guy, it seems to me, somebody sent him a message somewhere, get him off site, by whatever means necessary. And at the time when these things were going on, and I have to say, the trouble was really being caused there prior to my arrest by mainly a gang of 10 to 15 young juveniles, like 12 to 15-year-old guys throwing stones. The rest of the people, like myself, were standing around I was trying to cover the events. The rest of the people were just local people out there to protest and show their discontent with what was going on and what the police had done that day around this Crown Paints industrial unit that they had been protesting for months, peacefully, by the way. Everything was peaceful. And the last time I covered that area, it was an unbelievable turnout. There was around 4,000 people. They went from one roundabout to the next, nearly a mile long of people there, just from that one local area who were up in arms against this plantation centre being put into this area in Coolock, North Dublin City, which has been deprived for years, Rick, with facilities and amenities for young people and stuff like that. So, and at the same time, these people are not to mess with. I can't see them backing down here. As I said, I'd never condone any criminal activity on my channel or anything like that. But these people now will do it. They basically see this as their safety of their women and children primarily are being put in grave danger here, and they're not going to accept it. And they're not the type of people who will lie down easily, Rick,
No, they're not. And just for the benefit, Philip, of people that are listening, because obviously you and I are fully aware of what's going on in Coolock. You talk about plantation centres, you talk about the community coming out. In a nutshell, for somebody that hasn't a clue about what you're talking about, how do you explain it in simple terms to get the point across? What's the problem? What's the problem with Coolock? Why are people on the streets?
Well, they say they're sick and tired of it. They see what's going on around the rest of the country. They see that the people that are being brought in here are quite clearly fake refugees. They are not genuine asylum seekers. They're coming in the best of clothing, best of haircuts, designer watches, you name it. And they know now that the crime levels have gone up as well in along with this invasion, I called it anyway, an invasion that the government and the media won't talk about, that that extra crime that's being occurred. But we can see it all over social media day after day. There's these guys hanging around the city centres. They're actually overtaking town centres now, especially in Dublin. You hardly see an Irish person on the street there. So the local people know that this is a major grave danger to the local people in the area. And across from this particular industrial facility, there's a cinema, there's a leisure centre, there's a leisureplex, where children attend to congregate as well. It's just, they've had enough. Like, they basically had, on top of all the deprivation in the area, that the lack of support from governments over the years, that they're not prepared to tolerate it anymore. And they are people in this particular area as well, that they live in the real world. They're not influenced by social media. They don't care who calls them names, if they might be called xenophobes or racist or whatever like that. These people, that's the least of their worries over in these communities,
And, Philip, as well, just for the benefit of people listening internationally here, they're saying, oh, well, just people in this area, they're not happy, they're going to have to just deal with it. No, it's not just that area. We're talking about, you've been covering these things for, months after months after months. East Wall in Dublin. You're looking at places like Newton Mount Kennedy as well. We're talking about Coolock here. It's happening the length and breadth of Ireland at the minute. And there's another place that I want to talk about briefly that's on the verge of something similar happening, a place called Dundrum in Tipperary. Say local people in a village with a population of about 220 say they fear they'll be outnumbered if an asylum centre brings an extra 255 people into the town. So there's Dundrum in Tipperary going from 250 people to 500 people overnight, with 250 of those people being who knows who from who knows where. Surely people can understand why that causes concern, and that causes residents to come out and say, we're a little bit afraid of what might happen here.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've been down in Dundrum. I think I might have said it before, but my ancestors originate from that particular area. It's a rural, quaint, very small area. Apparently, the population of the Drum village is only 160 people. And as you say, the government want to bring in 255 to overtake a big part of a hotel there. That is a wonderful amenity, has been. Finance and income coming into an area, that was probably the main source of income for local businesses, cafes, or pub or whatever, all year round, that visitors would come there. I was there, stay there myself once or twice, playing golf, a wonderful golf course there. And if this particular individual who owns this building, he's kind of newly acquired, let's say in the last couple of years, if he gets the offer from the government to just fill the whole place, I'm sure he'll take it, because the financial incentives are too great not to, but the meantime, the locals have to live now with these let's call them undesirables. And I have, from going around to these centres, have visited places where the antisocial behaviour coming out of them, they've only literally just got off the plane, and a lot of these guys involved themselves in drug taking, antisocial behaviour, hanging around the roads, drinking and things like that, leering at women and antagonising, annoying women and things like that. These are all the things that I've seen. I mean, drug dens outside these centres, the first bit of cover they get, shrubbery, bushes or whatever, they'll go in and they'll sneak in there and they'll set up a little drug den and start taking drugs. These are just the harsh realities of the type of people that they're bringing into the country. They are not engineers and doctors, let's put it that way.
No, they're not scholars. They're not scholars and surgeons. That's a fact. So that's just to give people a flavour of what's happening all across Ireland. It's not just Coolock, but this is coming to a head there at the minute. What I want to do is we've got to take a quick headline break, Philip, 30 seconds. When we come back, let's look at what the government's doing about this. Let's look at how the police are handling this or not handling this, as the case may be. And if there is incompetence and ineptitude there, we'll have to ask ourselves why. Why are certain people still in a job after this little and if disasters that have followed them for the last 6 to 12 months? We'll do that when we come back here on TNT, today's News Talk. Okay, speaking this morning with Philip Dwyer, Irishman, citizen journalist, and, found himself on the wrong end of the An Garda Síochána on more than one occasion over the last few months. Philip, I want actually something else. I was watching your live stream when you got arrested, right? And then I saw you getting out on bail. And I'll say this. Aside from the way that you were arrested and the language that was used, what I found weirdest and the most sinister was when you came out of, when you got the bail and you came out, there was about 5, call them reporters, standing waiting with their cameras on their shoulders and these big white lights, and their hoods seemed to be up, right? And they were spaced out a little bit. They weren't in a throng. They were dotted around. And when you walked out, you approached them and said, "My name's Philip Dwyer. I'm a citizen journalist. Would you like to speak to me? Would you like an interview?" They didn't even say a word to you. When you asked them to identify themselves, they didn't say a word. There was just like these sinister black figures with these spotlights in your face. Did you not get a little bit freaked out, but not frightened? I'm not saying you were intimidated, but did you not find it was really weird that they wouldn't even say a word to you when you were offering an interview? And they obviously were there for you, but they didn't want to see you. They just wanted to video you. That was creepy.
Yeah, no, it's not the first time I've had that experience of walking out of a courtroom and expecting, or even walking in and expecting, let's call them the paparazzi, the fake news media, industrial media complex. I was fully prepared for them to be outside. I was getting my camera ready before I got outside the door. And if you noticed, I put up a clip there. The guy who walked in, he was one of the actual reporters. He's a correspondent for RTE. His name is Paul Reynolds. He's the crime correspondent from RTE. So, he was there to cover us so-called criminals, portray us as criminals. Even though half the country had seen the footage of my ridiculous arrest. But as soon as he saw me, he ran back in the door because he knew he'd be the first guy I would go to, to say, "Do you want to speak to me? Do you want to get my side of the story?" But no, I was quite prepared, and I did not expect them to speak to me. They loathe to have my opinion or my view on mainstream media in Ireland. They just, because I've been tarnished so badly by them. But I mean, I felt it was very important to show this as I was going, because I was the last person to be released on bail out of the 15. So I knew that they were there after filming 14 other people. And believe me, Rick, these guys, I spoke to a couple of lads while I was in the cells. The majority of them, now this was their side of the story. One guy did admit to me that he had been throwing stones. Fair enough, he got himself arrested. But the other guys were kind of young, kind of in their 18-year-olds up to 35-year-old guys that were there, standing around, just there to peacefully protest. And they were just singled out by the guards. They were obviously told, the Gardaí, the police, to just grab anybody, get arrests, and the beatings, and there was blood-stained clothes on these young fellas. They just got these malicious beatings of the police for no apparent reason. They weren't resisting everything. And one guy had a nose that looked like it was broken, and I said, "What happened to him?" And he said he was put into a van, and the riot police guy said, "Don't look at me, don't look at me." And he punched him just for looking at him, his face, So this is the kind of carry on that went on, that you won't see these guys outside the courtroom, the mainstream guys, reporting on. They'll just try to demonize. And by the way, they put everybody's name, full name and address up the next day on the papers as well, when we have loads of migrant crime going on, and they never seem to want to put their details on the media. So
when you talk about treachery and you talk about traitors in Ireland, I mean, like, what's more treacherous than the Irish media doxing Irish men and Irish women for going to a protest and getting arrested? And then if somebody comes in from outside, maybe cuts the head off a gay person, for example, or ticks their eye out, or stabs a young teacher to death, all of a sudden they can't print the name and address straight away. They when they're not named as Irishmen, and that they're not Irishmen that actually did it. And just speaking, just to wrap this up, and by the way, there's so much in this, Philip. I watched as well when that guy came over, McDermott, I think, Alan, somebody. McDevitt, there you go. Yeah. Alan McDevitt, Inspector or whatever he was. He actually came out. There was a McDonald's. You were standing beside a McDonald's, and they came out of there and grabbed you, but somebody else posted footage of from inside that. They actually went in there, right? And this is the public order unit. This is not just the average cop. They went in full rat gear to a McDonald's, and they were checking the receipts of the kids that were sitting eating their Happy Meals to see had they actually bought them there, and looking for any excuse to come down hard in a McDonald's. I kid you not, this footage is online, but just to wrap this up, it's bizarre. If you didn't have evidence of this, people might say, "Philip, you're winding me up here," but this is all documented. This is all down in evidence. And check out, by the way, in case I forget to say it, check out Philip's X or Twitter page, which is at Philip Dwyer, DWYER underscore MOI. All these live streams and all this videos is on there, but just in very briefly, because we've only got a minute here, Helen McEntee, so-called Justice Minister for Ireland, she was on an interview this week, and she said, look, we need these larger types of centres and these large sites that you're talking about. She said, we're moving immigrants out of hotels and B&Bs and into local communities in large numbers. And basically, we're doing that whether the community likes it or not. So she's not backing down in this, Philip. If anything, she's got the bit between her teeth, and I think she's going to go harder at it.
Mm-hmm. And you've also got her, your former RUC as our commissioner, Drew Harris, who's very adept at RUC riot tactics and maybe counterintelligence, how to destroy a community, how to put them down, how to intimidate them, how to put fear into them. And Helen McEntee is more than happy to use his services. Her duty to the Irish people should be to control our borders and control immigration, and not to be allowing people in here undocumented. Every dog in the street knows now that the people that are, vast majority of the people coming in here now are economic migrants, and they were illegal migrants. They're coming in here illegal.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's as much as we can cover here this morning, Philip. I'm trying to squeeze as many communities in. I'm trying to squeeze as much of your experience here as possible. And this ain't going away. So I'm sad to say the next time we talk again, more water will have went under the bridge. And hopefully you don't end up in Mountjoy. And if you do, hopefully they'll allow you to do a live broadcast from in there, because I need you to keep us informed on what's happening on the ground over on the Emerald Isle, or here on the Emerald Isle, should I say, for the benefit of anybody outside of Ireland. So Philip Dwyer, huge thanks to you for hopping on this morning at short notice and telling us how it is on the ground. And hopefully we'll stay in touch, and we'll see you again sooner rather than later. I've got to take a break now and welcome Trevor John on. So please stay tuned for more here on Locked and Loaded TNT. We'll be right back.